I was also asked to try to somehow connect this class to the Korban and the destruction that is going on right now in the world today amongst the Jewish people, the fact that so many of them are intermarrying and being lost. And so I think I'm going to be able to give you some practical tools for that. I don't know if this problem exists with you, but it certainly has existed with me for almost every Tisha B'Av that I've been at. And that is really trying to make it relevant to myself. It seems like it's such a big issue and such a humongous concept, and I'm trying to reach back in time and connect myself to things that I never experienced and that was never a part of my life. And so it's hard to go back and connect. So when I started to learn a little bit about Tisha B'Av, I realized that if you look back at the very first Tisha B'Av that they had, that was the sin of the spies. Now we had other explanations for why the temple was destroyed, but the problem with the sin of the spies was that the Jewish people, the spies come back actually, and they say that we seem to be small in our eyes. And that was the beginning of all the problems. The problems that led to the destruction of the temple, the problems that, you heard Rabbi Green talking about it this morning, with idolatry and with sexual impropriety and with murder and with sinas chinam. All of those are rooted in the same thing, being small in your own eyes. So what does it mean when you're small in your own eyes? So really what it means is that you feel helpless, you feel vulnerable, you have low self-esteem, you're angry, you're arrogant. All of those character traits and feelings are a reflection of someone who considers themselves to be small in their own eyes. And I think that this is the essence of the problem, because when you look into your world and you reflect on it in that way, feeling vulnerable, feeling small, it means really that you're not bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu along with you on the journey. You're there alone. I'm responsible for what's going on. It's up to me to make the business successful. It's up to me to make my family successful. Everything is sitting on me. And carrying that burden around with you is really what causes you to feel those feelings of anxiety and frustration and anger and helplessness. So the key to removing yourself from that feeling is to begin to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show. That's what Tisha B'Av, I think, fundamentally, one of its main messages is that God is running this show. This is His stage. This is His script. And we have really very little to do in this journey that we're on, other than to make choices that will bring us closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, closer in our relationship with Him. So I found this little story that Shlomo Carlebach gives over in his Haggadah, and it's one of his many great stories. So I'd like to just give it over to you. It's a story that takes place in 1943, the Warsaw Ghetto. It's the last Seder that's going to be in the ghetto. It's the second night of the Seder. So you have this family, a mother, a father, one little child. The child's name is Moishele. And he asks his dad, he says, Manishtan, why is this happening to us? Why is our entire world being destroyed right around us? When this little boy asks the question, Shlomo Carlebach tells us that the heavens started to cry. The angels started to cry. Our forefathers and our foremothers started to cry. Because here in the midst of this tragedy, the Holocaust, is a little child asking the most fundamental question that we ask. Why is this happening? Is this about us? So the father begins to answer him, And the son interrupts him, and Moshe says, Tata, I need to ask you my question. Next year, am I going to be here to ask these 4 questions? Next year, are you going to be here to answer these 4 questions? And the heavens, as I said, they were weeping at what the small little child was saying. The father, very famous kid, and he answered his son. He said, I don't know if you're going to be here, and I don't know if I'm going to be here, but I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a promise to the Jewish people. He said, Ki v'shem kedshachar nishbata lo. He said, by your holy name you swore to him, Shalo yichben neirot li'olam v'yed, that his lamp will never go out. The Jewish people will never end. Our little role in this might come to it. But there's a way bigger picture. And that's the idea that Moshe was getting from his dad, was that it's not just about us. It's not about the little situation that we're in. The boss that's giving you a hard time, the teacher that's making it difficult for you, the spouse that's not as easy to get along with. There's a bigger picture, and that bigger picture belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, what I want to introduce and talk about is the whole concept of how Hasidus connects to these 2 ideas. First idea being that being small in our own eyes, and the second one, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the entire show. So the founder of Hasidus was the Baal Shem Tov, and he had 3 fundamental principles on which the entire Hasidic movement was based. The first principle was that you should love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The second principle was that you should love His Torah. And the third principle was that you should love your fellow Jew. And what's interesting is, if you read the books wherever these 3 principles are laid out, in every case it's in the singular. He doesn't say you should love the Jewish people, you should love Am Yisrael. He says no, you should love your fellow Jew. You should know that Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, someone I learn a lot from, lived at a time when there was historically a movement called the Haskalah movement. The Haskalah movement was an intellectual, logic-based movement amongst the Jewish people that tried to draw people out of the idea of a God-centered life and into a life that was focused on science and provable theories, and it was really the forerunner of the Enlightenment. Why did this movement come into existence? Because at that time there was so much oppression of the Jewish communities that people were living there and saying, we can't take this. How much longer can we go through this? Why is this happening to us? There must be a way out. Maybe if we transition ourselves out of these shtetls and into communities and to cities, and we become like the rest of the people, maybe that'll make a difference. And so that became the underpinnings of their philosophical movement. So Rabbi Nachman, and you have to understand, that was a big polarization. Rabbi Nachman did everything that he could to befriend any of the people in his area that were members of this Haskalah movement. There are stories that are told where he would sit and get together with them before Shabbos, he'd play chess with them, he'd play cards with them, and he'd engage them. And they got to truly like him. And they restricted many of the activities and many of the events that they wanted to do. They just stopped doing them out of deference for this holy man. And he never turned his back on them. And he could have, because the prevailing philosophy or idea in the Jewish world at that time was to isolate these people out and have nothing to do with them. Like, let them live a life out there, don't involve them. Rabbi Nachman never did. To bring it a little forward, Babasha Rebbe was a very tough man to serve. No matter what you did, it wasn't good. He demanded from his shluchim and his talmidim that to go out into the world and make a difference, make things happen. But what was interesting, and I'm telling you this story because I happened to have been at a Shabbaton with a whole group of Chabad, and we were talking about the whole idea of doing kiruv and reaching out. It was never for them an issue of numbers. How many people can we get to come to a Shabbaton? How many people can we get to come to a class? How many people can we get into this program or get into that program? Because Lubavitcher Rebbe, even though he demanded that his shluchim constantly be reaching out, his idea was, his concept was that you wake up every morning and that you think to yourself, I just want to reach out to just one more Jew. So if I want to plan a Shabbaton, let me connect myself to just one person. So I'll have a Shabbaton with one person. And then once that person is comfortable and I'm connected with them, then I'll move on to the next. And in that way, they built their movement and all of the programs that they're doing. So I think there's a very important lesson in there about how we can deal with this problem, this tragedy that's happening right around us. You know, in the shul here, 2.5 years ago, we changed our focus. We became primarily dedicated, not as a shul dealing with its community, but as a shul dealing with the community. There's over 10,000 families, Jewish families, living in this area. Maybe 1,500 of them have any affiliation to any sort of a synagogue. That means there's 8,500 families that are out there that know nothing about their Yiddishkeit. And it became the focus and the mission of this shul to reach out and to touch those families in any way, without counting numbers, without measuring what you did or how you came or you know what. It wasn't results oriented. It was reach out oriented. The reason for that is that it's based on these principles of Hasidus and on what the Rebbe's teach us, but also because at the same time, you, the people who are doing the reaching out, are growing themselves. The activity of reaching out and helping other people isn't for their benefit. Hashem runs this world and He gives us these opportunities not for them. We're not managing them, we're managing us. This is how we grow. This is how we change. This is how it becomes real for us, is that when we touch somebody else, we're the ones who gain more. You know, every time I come and I do a class, I never know if one person is going to show up, or 2 people, or 20 people, or sometimes nobody. That's not what's important. What's important is that I'm coming here and I'm going to prepare something to be able to talk. And that is a growth for myself. In the same way, when you go out into the world and you're thinking, you know, this korban that they're talking about, the whole concept behind Rabbi Weinberg of Eshet Torah, this is like too big a concept for me. I can't change all of these people. I can't affect all of these. It's like too big. Exactly like Tisha B'Av. It's too big. It's like, how do I incorporate this whole thing into me? But you have to reduce it. You have to make it small. And you have to bring it down to one individual person. And not as many people as you can. Like I've had a few guys come up to me and say, well, you know, I want to try to connect to as many people as possible. I said, why are you doing that? You're not being genuine. What we have to share as the Jewish people is a beautiful gift. But it has to be real. It has to be real in our lives before we can give it to anybody else. Because if it's not real for us, if you're not happy in your Judaism, if you're not fulfilled by it, it's impossible for you to share it with someone else. They'll never feel it. They'll see your anguish and they'll see your pain, but they won't see the beauty of what you have to offer them. So, Well, therefore, what I thought would be an important message for Tisha B'Av is to, first of all, try to bring it down to that level. When you go out there and you give a smile to someone, or you say hello, or you say good morning, let that be enough. You don't have to set gigantic goals for yourself. You can make something small very achievable for you to do. And also understand that it's also a focus of building it in yourself. You know, in the Chabad Siddur, and I believe in a few other Siddurs, when we start the morning in davening, before you start praying, they have a little line that they stick in. We don't have it in Ashkenazi Siddurs. I think it's an amazingly powerful line. The line is, Areini, behold, Mikabel, I accept upon myself, Al ha-mitzvah aseh, upon this mitzvah that I have to do, Shel v'ahavta, that I will love, L'riecha, your fellow Jew, in the singular, Mikamocha, just like myself, V'ahavta l'riecha kamocha. So that's, I think, the message of Tisha B'Av. That's how I think we make it work for us. Think about somebody that you know. Maybe they're suffering in some way. Maybe they lost a job. Maybe they're, they have financial problems. They have marital problems. Maybe an illness. Think of one person and connect yourself through empathizing with their pain and caring about them on the singular level. Think about it. When you repeat that sentence, I think that will engage you in fighting the Korban and fighting against the destruction of the Jewish people that's going on around us. And that way, when you walk down the street, I'll just tell you one other quickie story, and then we can head in for minute. For many years, I used to walk to shul. I lived all the way down there. I used to walk by this non-Jewish guy's garden. He had a beautiful garden. So if I saw him in the morning, I would go up to him and I'd say, and I'm wearing my kapata and my black hat, and I'd go up to him and I'd say, I love your garden. I have to tell you, it makes my day when I walk to my synagogue to see your beautiful garden. The guy was beaming right from here to here. Beautiful trees and everything. I moved out of that area. 4 years later, Rabbi Rothman will confirm the story. Rabbi Rothman is having his house repaired, and he has to have some drywall installed because it had a big leak. So the guy comes to the house to install the drywall. He sees Rabbi Rothman is got a kippah on his head. He says, they start talking, and he says, there used to be a guy that lived near me. I haven't seen him for a while, but he used to walk by every Saturday morning, and he would always compliment me on my garden. He said, you must have a really, the word was, great religion or nice religion to make people think like that. So Rabbi Rothman says to him, where did you live? He says, I'm Joseph Aaron. He says, I know who walked by your house. But you understand the effect 4 years later? One person. I think that's what we're trying to talk about, and that's what we're trying to connect to on Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av came into existence because we made ourselves small in our own eyes. That means we were unhappy. We felt helpless. We felt vulnerable. We didn't feel good about ourselves. Let's reverse. You want to reverse that energy? Reverse it by focusing on one person.